Hey guys, welcome back to another video. My name is Alexis if you're new. So as many of you already know, I worked as both a medical assistant and a pharmacy technician, and I'm always getting the question about which one is better. So today I'm breaking down the pay, the stress, work-life balance, and just things that I wish I knew before I got into either field. So if that's something that interests you, stick along for the rest of the video. So if you're stuck between becoming a medical assistant or a pharmacy technician, I've literally lived both worlds, and one of them actually surprised me. Before we get into that, I want to talk about what made me become a pharmacy technician and then how I got into becoming a medical assistant shortly after that. So if you're new here, there's already an entire video on my channel about my whole pharmacy technician experience from when I first started to where I am now. It's pretty detailed on my channel, so I'm going to link that in the description below. So I'm not going to go into too much detail here. Basically, I started out as a broke college student. I was working at CVS at the front desk. My manager offered to get me in the back working as a pharmacy technician if I was ever interested. I eventually took the offer and I got the experience working in the back as a pharmacy technician. I was getting cross-trained and everything up until I got fired. And then I left, joined the military, came back and continued to pursue my certification for pharmacy technician. So my experience started with me working at CVS. That's where I started before I had any experience at all. I want to say I was getting paid around like $12 around the time, and I probably got like a little 50-cent increase when I started getting cross-trained in the back. It wasn't much. And then during my schooling, when I was going, for my certification, when we had to do the internship, I got that training at Walgreens. Walgreens was pretty like fast paced. It was just like a whole shock, and it was a challenge, not gonna lie. So imagine like I was running the drive-through, I was filling prescriptions, I was working the front like register, answering phones. It was just so overwhelming. Not all pharmacies have a drive-through. The drive-through wasn't too complicated to learn, but it did like throw me off a little bit at first. It was like pretty draining, I'm not even gonna lie. I know that like in the beginning, like I struggled so hard, you guys. Like I was not like good, like fresh out the bat at all. It took me a long time to catch on to a lot of things. Right before I left, I started to get really good. Like I remember my manager mentioned it because like I put in my resignation and everything, and he was just like, but you got so good, like you used me to get good and now you're leaving. And I was just like, well, Walmart offered me more money, so I left Walgreens and went to Walmart. Walmart was offering like $15, but I think it was like $15.75 or something. Like it was like a jump for me, and I was like so happy. I feel like it was a lot more organized as far as like the interview process and just like them showing me around and stuff like that. Like I had a really nice lead pharmacy technician compared to the one at Walgreens. She was cool too, but she was kind of like not as patient. I feel like the one at Walmart, she was very patient. I really did appreciate her. She was really thorough too. A typical day just basically looked like coming in. If you were coming in the morning, then you would probably jump on the fill station first and start catching up on the fill station. The pharmacist would usually like help out with typing up the prescriptions. Usually like as a pharmacy technician, our responsibility is to type up the prescriptions that come in and then send it to the pharmacist. The pharmacist verifies that everything looks correct, and then they push it to the fill station, we fill it, and then we send it, we get the prescription, we give it back to the pharmacist, like the physical prescription, give it to the pharmacist, they check it again, and then it goes and gets bagged and it's ready for the patient to pick up. That's usually only if like it was like me and just the pharmacist. If it was me and another technician, then one of us would hop on the drop-off station, is what they call it, when patients come over and drop off scripts. A lot of times patients were waiting like at the front, you guys, like, waiting at the pharmacy while the gates were closed for us to come in. So a lot of patients would come in and drop off a script, and they'd be like, hey, I want to wait for it. So we would have one technician typing up the prescriptions and another one filling. So on top of typing up prescriptions, on top of filling prescriptions, we also had to make sure we're answering the phones for patients who were calling in to refill a prescription or ask questions or whatever the case may be. Sometimes an insurance company was calling, we had to answer those type of calls. Those are a lot longer. Or a doctor was calling in. Usually if the doctor's calling in though, they're calling to talk to the pharmacist, so it's not really up to us to like take that call. So but yeah, on top of filling a prescription, typing up prescription, answering the phones, we also had to periodically do cycle counts. And cycle counts is basically where whatever is on the shelf has to match up with what's in the system. Sometimes what's in the system doesn't match up with what's on the shelf, because let's say like we had waste, like if a couple of pills fell on the ground and we had to dispose of it, then now our count is off. Someone doesn't fix it right then and there, then later we go back and look into the system, we notice over time our count just got off. So cycle counts is basically just maintenance to make sure that whatever is actually on the shelf, like physically on the shelf, matches up with what's in our system. So we had to do cycle counts. We also had to do deliveries. We would have one technician at that station just like bagging prescriptions to send out for delivery for the next day. On top of drop off, filling, cycle counts, deliveries, we also had to do return to stocks. That's when medications that were supposed to be picked up by a patient were never picked up. So after a certain amount of days, I think with Walmart, they only hold a prescription for about 10 days, if I'm not mistaken. I think they hold it for about 10 days. And then after 10 days, we have to put the prescription back. So we take it apart basically and rip off all the HIPAA, all the PII or PHI, and then we put it back on the shelf inside that same orange vial because we can't put it back into the original bottle after it's been taken out. And that just reminded me, we also had to do like phone calls too. On day 3, we would call the patient and let them know that their prescription's ready. And then on like day 5, we would call the patient again and let them know their prescription's ready. And then the day before we put it back, we would call them again. So we had a technician that would have to like go through that list of, you know, day 3s, day 5s, day 9s, whatever, stuff like that. So that was another thing on top of all the other things we had to do. And then also, of course, we had to work the front counter. So when patients are coming to pick up prescriptions, we'd have to bring them out. And then a lot of times we would have to deal with like issues with insurance. So then if we couldn't take care of it right there, we would send them to the drop-off station. And then also like flu vaccines around flu season, we would have to have patients fill out a form and make sure that's all correct, give it to the pharmacist and have them give the flu vaccine. It's just a whole lot of responsibilities. I would say that my favorite part was just like, especially at Walmart, like we had like hour-long lunches. So that I appreciated that. I appreciated how fast the day would go by. Again, that was like time would fly because we were always busy. I did appreciate being on my feet. It was like a pro and the con, because a pro was that I'm always moving, I'm active, I'm not sitting down in one spot being bored. There's always something to do. It's never nothing to do, like working in the pharmacy. So it's something I kind of like, it's like a love-hate relationship when it comes to that. I appreciate it like working like in that retail environment because like, you know, on my lunch break or whenever I got like a break, I can just go out and go shopping or look at things I needed. I also like the fact that I didn't have to always like work Monday through Friday and just have the weekends off. I appreciated being able to have weekdays off too in case I had to schedule an appointment or, you know, just to have a weekday off. It was just nice. It was also pretty predictable in a way. I would say like it's kind of a hit and miss. Like, you know what you have to do for the day, but you just don't know how the day is going to turn out. So it's kind of predictable, but kind of not. I also appreciated the variety of like positions I can do as a pharmacy technician, like whether that be working in retail, working in hospital, being a floater where I'm just like floating to different locations, and working from home, which is something I currently do now. I can get into that later though towards the end of the video. I also feel like working in the pharmacy like had way more benefits than working as a medical assistant. They would offer to pay for your tuition, especially Walmart. Walmart had such a good, like great benefits. Like I appreciated Walmart for its benefits. I appreciated the opportunity to work holidays. You didn't have to, you know, all the time. They would like rotate, you know, people every year and stuff like that, but I love to have the opportunity to work holidays because then you get time and a half. And we always got like annual bonuses too, and just like bonuses around the holidays too. That's something that as a medical assistant I never got, so I really did appreciate that working as a pharmacy technician as well. And then obviously I think this is the same for both, but there's always a job, there's always someone hiring pharmacy technicians. Like you'll never be out of work as a certified pharmacy technician. Okay, so now that I'm done with the pros of being a pharmacy technician, let me get into the cons real quick. Sometimes it was too busy to get your work done, and that would create overflow for the next day and then the next day, and then things would just like get a little like piled up. There were a lot of times when like cycle counts wouldn't have been done for like weeks on end, and by the time we get to doing the cycle counts, it's like so like you're basically like counting every drug in the freaking pharmacy, because the way cycle counts work, like you're not necessarily doing every drug for that day. Like you would do it over a period of days, and then like it'll all get caught up. But by the time we would get a chance to get to it, it would be like hundreds of prescriptions that we would, or medications that we would have to do cycle counts on, and we would just be so backed up. And then also like if we were backed up when it came to filling prescriptions, that was even more annoying, because then we'd have patients come in and their prescriptions would have been due at a certain time, but they're not done because we're backed up. So then they would be coming in complaining or calling and complaining, and that would even slow us down even more. And then obviously like rude people, I feel like you get that with both jobs though, but I feel like as a pharmacy technician I experienced rude people a lot more, especially the environment that I worked in. I worked in a location that was a lot more like hood a little bit, so I worked in both though. I got to experience both. I worked in like a hood type area, like neighborhood, and then I worked in like a uppity, like high class type neighborhood, and both of them had their pros and cons. I would say like when it came to working in like lower class, I guess you can call it, like area, it was just a lot more like crazy stuff happening. Like I worked at the Walmart, so you would just see any and everything. But when it came to working in like a higher class like neighborhood at Sam's Club, when I was working at Sam's Club, I would deal with like people who were a lot more privileged, which was super annoying sometimes too. So it's like a pro and a con. Oh yes, being understaffed could significantly reduce work productivity. A lot of times, like, because we were all so burnt out, like people were calling out left and right. So if just one person called out, I don't care if three people were scheduled, if one person called out, it was over. That would like put so much more like stress on each of us, like who came in that day, like tremendously. So and calling out happened a lot, like in the pharmacy, not even gonna lie. Like I feel like it happened a lot more than it should have, because it's like, I feel like burnout is so much more faster. Like, yeah, like the day's going by faster, but it's just so much to get done. So you just get burnt out a lot more faster, in my opinion. I don't want to say this to scare you guys, but I would say that working in the pharmacy, it is like easy to like make a mistake where you can get your license or certification taken away. So it's just more for awareness purposes that I wanted to mention that. Like for example, like if you're talking on the phone, like, you know, and there's people at the register, obviously you don't want to like be super loud when you're talking on the phone and telling people's, like saying people's personal information out loud. Also, like when you're like working at the drop-off station, for example, like if someone drops off their prescription, obviously you want to put it away and turn it face down or whatever before you take the next customer. Like if you're in the rush and you can't like scan it in the system and file it away, then obviously like when the next person comes up, you don't want their prescription laying right on top, or in the same place that you left it when the next person comes up, because that's a HIPAA violation as well. And then like, don't get me started with filling prescriptions. Like a lot of times when, you know, if somehow, some way, like it got by the little handheld system and you grab the wrong prescription, or if there's a lot of times where we don't have to scan it, you can just type in, like manually type in the NDC, and that's where errors would occur. Anything can happen. So it's just, you know, it's I feel like a lot more easier to make mistakes in the pharmacy setting, especially, yeah, definitely, than working as a medical assistant. Oh, another thing I really hated was the fact that it was less freedom for us, like, to like bring our personal belongings in the pharmacy. That was so annoying to me. Like the pharmacists, they can bring their lunches, they can bring a coat inside, like all that stuff, like umbrella. We couldn't bring, like, especially at Walmart and Sam's Club. I want to say CVS and Walgreens wasn't as strict. But Sam's Club and Walmart, like they were so strict, you guys. It was a good thing, but it was also kind of annoying. You gotta leave this stuff in the car. I'm just like, you can't even bring our lunches in. We had to go put our stuff in the lunchroom with everybody else, which was fine, but I'm just like, it'd be so much easier if we can just put our stuff in the fridge with the pharmacist stuff. I felt like they didn't trust me, so I'm just like, dang, I'm scared to like anything. Like if a pill fall in my pocket, it's over. But then again, I get it. A lot of people abused it. Like a lot of pharmacy technicians were stealing. Not saying that was happening where I was working at, but prior to us even getting there, like there was, you know, rumors, stories and stuff like that of pharmacy technicians like stealing, and, you know, it's just so many unique ways that they were stealing. So I guess it got to a point where they were just like, y'all can't bring nothing in the pharmacy. All right, so now that I did the quick little rundown of the day in the life of a pharmacy technician, I want to go into my experience becoming a medical assistant, and then the pros and cons that I experienced working as a medical assistant as well. So again, I kind of mentioned this in my pharmacy technician video, and then I have like videos on my channel already about like my experience becoming a medical assistant. I'll link it inside the description box below. But basically, shortly after leaving Walmart, I got hired as a front desk receptionist at a primary care office. But really they hired me as a pharmacy technician, but my job description was basically that of a front desk receptionist, so I just call it front desk receptionist. So when I first started, I was just doing a bunch of admin, like tasks, answering phones, scheduling appointments, scanning in insurance cards, just all that stuff at the front desk. And then eventually I shared my interest with the manager, you know, about becoming clinical and, you know, working in the back, and they were eager to get me back there. So she had me go to classes like that the job would like host for people who were coming on the job and getting into the clinical side of things. So they had like a training for that, which was really nice. I really enjoyed it. It was really thorough. They gave me like this big old binder and had all these pre-printed notes in it, and they had like a nurse come and teach us like all the things we needed to know to be like a medical assistant or work on the clinical side. So I did that, but at the same time, I also decided to just get my medical assistant certification. I figured like if I get my certification, they have to like pay me more. Like, and I'm always thinking like that, like, you know, how can I get paid more? So I took the course. It was so nice. Like, you guys, like, I had like a real nurse who was teaching us, and she was real like interactive, really funny. Really, what I really appreciate about her was that she was really thorough. Like, she knew exactly, like, she knew what she was talking about, and she also like cared about like patient care. And that's another thing that really stuck to me, because I care about patient care. I didn't realize how much I cared about people until, like, you know, I started working in the healthcare field. So yeah, I ended up finishing the course and everything, got my certification. I was already working in the back as a medical assistant before I even finished the course. So while she was teaching, you know, everything in the class, I was a little cocky, not gonna lie, because I already knew how to do a blood pressure. I already knew that how to read like the pulse ox and just all this little stuff. I already knew how to do it. So I was a little cocky, not gonna lie, but like learning the foundational stuff was still very important. And I'm so glad I made the right decision to like finish the course and take the course in the first place. But anyway, I got certified. My job was just like, oh, you didn't have to get certified, but they ended up paying me more anyway. So yes, I did. I started working as a medical assistant, and I fell in love, you guys. Like, I felt like that's where I belonged at that time. A typical day in the life basically looked like me just like prepping the rooms. Like, I would come in the morning, and if the rooms weren't like prepped the day before, and when I say prepped, I just mean like everything cleaned, wiped down. The paper that's on the table is called a table, but it's really like a bed thing that the patients sit on. If the paper on the table was like all crumpled and used, I would like, you know, pull it down, rip off the old paper and put on new paper. I would make sure everything in the room is stocked up. Nothing's like, you know, half empty or whatever. So the room would be prepped. I would just go around, cut on all the lights, look inside, make sure everything's good. Then I would go to my desk, log in. I would check like my messages, make sure there's nothing urgent that I need to get to. And then I would be like looking at the schedule, like going back and forth, looking at the doctor's schedule to see if anyone has arrived yet. As soon as someone arrives, I go grab them, get their, you know, their height, weight, blood pressure, you know, their heart rate, their oxygen, go over the medication list in detail. And again, there's a whole video that I have out that, you know, talks about this in more detail, so I'll link that in the description below. But yeah, that's basically what the day in the life looked like as far as like pulling patients and everything. Occasionally I would have to like give a vaccine or like do an ear irrigation or assist a provider with, let's say, a pap smear or something like that. That's basically what it was. I was just pulling patients, you know, doing what I needed to do as far as like my job responsibilities to prepare them for the provider to come into the room. There was also a lot of documentation that needed to be done at the same time. Like, if I give a flu vaccine, for example, I would have to like document that and document so many times. I feel like we had to document it in like 3 different places. Like, I would have to have the patient fill out a form, and then that form would have to be scanned into the chart, and then I would have to like type it into the chart digitally. Like, I don't even know how to explain it. I would have to enter the details into the computer, like into the chart digitally, and then the same paper would get stored and filed into like a binder. So it was like a lot of like documentation. A lot of times I would say that like towards the end of the day, but if, you know, if I could, I would do it in that moment so that I wouldn't have a lot to do towards the end, depending on how busy the day was. And then like towards the end of the day, I would also like prep my chart for the next day. So that would include me putting in diagnosis codes that I know that the provider would use for certain appointments, because some providers would do their own, like put in their own diagnosis codes into the chart. Other providers would want you to do it. So it just really depends on the doctor that you're working with, or physician assistant or nurse practitioner that you're working with. It all just depended. So I had to, you know, there were just, it was different responsibilities sometimes working for different providers. So keep that in mind. I had some providers that were a lot more hands-on. Those ones I did like. I appreciated the ones that were less hands-on, because it allowed me to like learn more and to do more and have a lot more of a hands-on experience in the whole matter. Other than that, like, I would, you know, a lot of the times, like after, if it wasn't a busy day and I finished with patients early, I get to sit at my desk, catch up on messages. A lot of the messages were either the provider messaging me and asking me to send in a prescription, or asking me to call the patient back to give them this response that they already put inside the message, or I would be responding to a message that the front desk sent to me, and I would be calling, you know, the patient back that it's in reference to and answering whatever questions, or taking down like a more thorough note about what they, whatever they said, and then I would send that thorough note to the doctor and then get their response and then call the patient back again. So it was a lot more like, a lot of more admin type of work that I would do towards the end of the day. Again, like I would scan in documentation that I didn't get to do earlier that day, sending in prescriptions, and again, just prepping the chart for the next day. So the pros of being a medical assistant for me would be having a fixed schedule. I know I mentioned earlier that as a pharmacy technician, I appreciated having a flexible schedule. But when it came from me coming from being, working like a flexible schedule to now having a fixed schedule, it kind of felt nice to have like some type of like stability a little bit. Like now I would know like, okay, I work literally 9 to 5. Like I come in at 8:30, get off at 5 p.m. and then I know for sure that I have the weekend off. So it kind of helped, especially when I started going back to school. I knew like, my schedule was stable, like it was fixed. I also appreciated getting the chance to sit down too. Like I mentioned earlier, as a pharmacy technician, like we're always on go. Like we weren't even really allowed to sit down, especially at Walmart or Sam's Club. They wouldn't even let us sit down. At other pharmacies like Walgreens, CVS, they let us sit down. Working as a medical assistant, there was a lot more opportunity to sit down. After you would room the patient, unless you had to room the next patient like back to back, you literally would room the patient and go sit back at your desk and then do whatever you needed to do. It kind of like gave me like a buffer a little bit, like a chance to like breathe for a second. There was some predictability to how my day was going to go just based off of the doctor's or provider's schedule. A lot of times like the day before, even a week in advance, you'd be able to see the doctor's schedule or the provider's schedule. But a lot of times like a week in advance, like so many things can change. So a lot of the times at the end of the day, I would look at the provider's schedule for the next day, and then I would be like, okay, so there's an 8:30 coming in and then an 11:30, and then the next patient doesn't come in till like 2:30, so I get that little 11:30 to 2:30 break, and I get to do this and catch up on this. And it was just nice like being able to see how my day would possibly look for the next day, in advance. At the pharmacy, there was none of that. None of that at all. Again, I really truly did appreciate having more hands-on care with the patient. It was nice, like especially like in my situation, I had like a lot of patient feedback. Like a lot of my providers, either the patients would tell me to my face, or they would tell the provider, and the provider would come back and tell me that like they said, so many good things about you. They really liked you. I just loved the opportunity to just like make the patient feel comfortable, because a lot of times, like I mentioned in my other video, people aren't coming in just to come see the doctor. A lot of people are coming in because they have health issues, health concerns, and they're worried and they're concerned, and they don't need like another someone to add to their stress by being short with them or being rude to them. So I really did appreciate like when my patients, I called them my patients, when my patients came in, I appreciated them making them feel at home and making them feel comfortable and making them feel safe and making them feel like everything's going to be okay when they came into the office. Another thing I appreciated was the fact that it was kind of like an entry-level type of job to healthcare. If when I wanted to become a physician assistant, I don't want to become a physician assistant anymore, but at the time I did, and I was just like, okay, this is perfect. Getting all this experience is helping me to see like kind of close up and personal how a physician assistant's day in the life would look like when I got to that point. And then also just like learning the foundational stuff already, by getting this experience as a medical assistant. With that being said, if you do decide to pursue like higher education as a medical professional, you can get recommendations from doctors that you worked under that are fond of you. So that was something that like I found really helpful, as a medical assistant. Another thing I really liked was having hour-long lunches. A lot of the providers, they would see like their last patient at 12 or 12:30, and then they wouldn't come back till 1 or 1:30. So, they would have an hour lunch, which would mean that you would have an hour lunch too. Not saying that I would be clocked out for a whole hour. I would be clocked out for 30 minutes, but I would be able to sit at my desk, eat my food, and like still, be working, if I needed to for that hour, or I would just like be chilling. And then while we're on the lunch topic, I also appreciated the fact that a lot of drug companies would come in and schedule lunch appointments with the providers because they wanted to have an opportunity to sell the drug to the provider and get that provider to prescribe it more to their patients so that they can make money or whatever. So we had so many lunches. Like there were so many drug companies or drug reps coming in from different companies and scheduling lunches with the provider. And then we would have like a lunch like almost every day, or at least like 3 days out of the week. And I really, really, truly appreciated that because that was free lunch. And a lot of the times it was like not no cheap food. So I really loved that. And then last but not least, I did appreciate the fact that I got to work in different like specialty locations as a medical assistant. I started out in primary care. I got to work in ENT, which is ear, nose, and throat. I got to work in podiatry, which is with the, working with the feet. I got to work in OBGYN. I got to work in pediatrics. I got to work in urgent care. I got to work in a lot of different specialties, which I found really nice because I got to get that experience. I would say more often than not, I would experience a situation where the doctor would run behind. And so that would cause me to be behind. And not a lot of times, but sometimes that would cause me to get off late. Like I would be doing overtime. That's one thing I really did not like. But I mean, what can you do? Rude people again. There was a lot of people who would insult your intelligence because you're not a MD. Like, are you okay? We're here to help you. There's always a possibility for a risk of getting exposed to like illnesses and stuff. I remember I caught COVID like twice. I didn't get any needle sticks, nothing like that, but that is also a huge possibility. So that's definitely something that I would mark down as a con. I mean, I guess as a pharmacy technician, you can run into that issue as well because now pharmacy technicians are allowed to give vaccines too. That's definitely a con and something that you want to be careful of, especially if you already have pre-existing health conditions. You don't want to put yourself more at risk. Then maybe something else would be better for you. One thing I really hated, you guys, and I mentioned this time and time again, is the fact that they had me floating to so many different offices. I worked for a company that had several locations like all over the city and in different cities. So whenever someone like another medical assistant called out or something like that, and if my doctor was off for the day, let's say my doctor was off for the day, or let's say that my doctor finished early that day, they would call me and ask me to float somewhere. And yes, they reimbursed me for gas, but that's not the point. Like, I loved coming in to work at my desk and work for my doctor and see my patients. I hated having to go to different locations. And it wasn't just like every blue moon. This happened way more often than I feel like it should have. Working as a medical assistant, I feel like it's less drama. There's less drama like that you'll be exposed to versus working as in the pharmacy, but there was still a little bit of drama. So I would say, like, just stay to yourself and don't overshare and stuff like that. I remember when I was young, like I was so quick to warm up to people so quickly. I learned real quick, like, not to trust everybody, not to tell everybody my business, not to be so like comfortable with people so quickly. And that really, I feel like, kept me out of a lot of drama versus like in the beginning when I was just social butterfly. Oh, and then another thing, like if you're working at your location and there's multiple doctors or multiple providers working at one location sometimes, so you'll have like 3 providers and 3 medical assistants. Let's say one medical assistant calls out. Like, me and the other medical assistant are basically team tagging a doctor. Like, we have our own providers. I have a provider, she has a provider. But now there's this one provider that has no medical assistant or no nurse to run for them. And a lot of times they couldn't even send them, they didn't have anyone available to send to our location. So we had to team tag. So I would be running my provider and then she'd be running her provider. And then like I would grab the one, the provider that was medical assistant list. I'll grab one of their patients, first, and then she'll grab the next one, and then I'll grab the next one, and then it'll be crazy. Let's say that it's just 2 providers and 2 medical assistants, and that medical assistant called out. If they couldn't send another medical assistant over from another office, you would be running both doctors by yourself. That was very annoying. And last but not least, another con, I mean, I guess it could be considered a con, but your day just depends on how the provider's schedule looks. I would just say it would be a pro or a con depending on the provider that you work for. I feel like my pay as a pharmacy technician significantly increased at a lot faster rate than it did when I was a medical assistant. They would only give you a raise like every year, like an annual raise, and it wouldn't be much. So I would have to literally fight to get a raise as a medical assistant. It was so hard. Keep in mind though that I only worked for 2 companies. I was with one company for 3 or 4 years, and then I worked for another company for 9 months. It wasn't even that long, so I couldn't really get a raise with the second company. But with the first company, I was with them for a while. I ended up leaving with a lot more than some of my other counterparts. I would say, if you're gonna be a medical assistant, don't be afraid to ask for a raise. Do everything in your power to argue for why it would make sense for you to get a raise. I was real cool with my manager, all my managers actually. I was in their office chatting it up, and I was like, what can I do? to get paid more. So I was always looking for the next opportunity because it just was never enough. But as a pharmacy technician, I felt like with each job that I went to, like from CVS to Walgreens to Walmart to Sam's Club to CHKD outpatient pharmacy to working from home, like I literally, like my pay increased each time I went. Like each time the next job I went to, pay increase. Like it was fast, like, and it was a lot faster. And I wasn't with, and then like, you know, a lot of times like they're just like, you know, they want you to at least be at a job for a year. I wasn't even at the job for a year for a lot of those pharmacies, and I still was able to negotiate like a higher wage. So yeah, I would just say it's all about like a negotiation, not accepting what they offer the first time. Sometimes you have to negotiate and sell yourself a little bit. But from a lot of the times, like I didn't have to sell myself much. Like they would just give me a raise, like, I mean, not a raise, but they were offering me a higher pay on the spot. I would say being a pharmacy technician and a medical assistant, I don't know if this depends on where you work at or not, but the wages were capped. Like you couldn't go over a certain amount. There was a higher amount that you could reach as far as like, you know, your hourly rate, but you know, you couldn't go above that. As far as like being able to live off of the pay when it came to both jobs, I was fine. Keep in mind though, I'm also in the Army National Guard, and I was going to school full time. So the Army pays you to go to school. The Army pays you to go to training. So I do want to mention that as a disclaimer, but a lot of my military pay was just like extra money. It wasn't like, oh, I needed that to pay my bills. So, I mean, that's a disclaimer that I wanted to throw in there, but I didn't really like rely on that to pay my bills. I was really paying my bills with my medical assistant or pharmacy technician paycheck. So I would say, like, as a single adult with no kids, no children, even after I got my car and had to make like a car note, I was okay. All in all though, I did feel like it was a lot more like rewarding working as a medical assistant, because I really did like feel more, can't even think of the word right now, but it just felt more rewarding. I just felt like I was actually making a difference in the lives of the people that I was treating and everything, because I got to hear their stories and listen to them. A lot of people just wanted someone to listen to them. Now that I'm working from home as a pharmacy technician, this is something I've always wanted to do, by the way, just work from home, because I'm an introvert and I've just never felt like I worked well with other people. Not saying that like I would like have issues working with other people all the time, but I would just be a lot more comfortable working by myself. And then being a pharmacy technician, I finally got the opportunity to do it. You would think that like something that you've always wanted would be like probably like you'd have to sacrifice like money or something, but I didn't have to make any sacrifices. The benefits are better, the pay is better, and I get to work in the comfort of my own home. I would say, based off of my experience, I prefer being a pharmacy technician, just because as far as like work-life balance, for me, it just worked out a lot better for me that way. I enjoyed having weekdays off. I enjoyed having a lot more flexibility when it came to my schedule. I enjoyed being on my feet because I'm a pretty active person. I like to stay in shape. I like to work out. So being on my feet all day was really nice. I wasn't overeating. I feel like as a medical assistant, I would sit at a desk all day, some days, and I would just like overeat, like snack all the time. Overall, I appreciated both, like being a pharmacy technician and a medical assistant, because I got to see both ends of the spectrum. If you like having a routine, if you enjoy patient care, if you enjoy like a little bit more variety to your day, if you want more of like a clinical feel, and if you can see yourself advancing in the healthcare field a lot further, then I would highly recommend going for the medical assistant or something in the medical field. But if you're like me and you prefer like more of a routine, like being a pharmacy technician, like you knew everything that was gonna, that you had to do for the day. You knew all the tasks. There was nothing new that could surprise you other than just like the workload itself and the phone calls coming in and how busy it was going to be or how slow it could be. Other than that, like you knew all the tasks that would need to be done. So if you prefer like having a routine, if you prefer less direct patient interaction, if you prefer to work in the fast-paced environment, and if you want like a pretty quick entry into the healthcare field, then I would highly recommend being a pharmacy technician. So that is all that I have for you guys in this video. Hopefully I was able to cover all of the questions that you may have had. If there's anything I left out, definitely let me know in the comment section. If you have more questions, I can definitely do like a part 2. If you guys have more like personal questions that you want to ask me, you don't feel comfortable leaving it in the comment section, you can always go to my Instagram and DM me. I'm more than open to receiving your questions in the DM. I've responded to some people already. My Instagram information is in my bio on my YouTube channel. But yeah, I want to know from you guys, like, which one are you leaning towards now after watching this video, after getting like my experience and my perspective and everything, you know, which job, which career are you leaning more towards now after watching this? And which one, did it change, you know, your perspective, and did it change your choice, or are you deciding to keep it the same? Let me know in the comments. Again, I hope this video was helpful. Again, I'm so sorry for the wait, and I appreciate you guys for watching. And until next time, I'll see you in the next video.